last kind of big picture topic that's been talked about over and over, because we live on the West Coast, the Pac-12 is no longer. You got like 10 months left before USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are Big Ten, and you obviously got the schools going to the Big 12. But I want to give you my take, and then you can give your take. And I'm sure this is going to be a topic that we chat about throughout the year, just because it's in the news constantly. It came out just today. Gonzaga's flirting again with the Big 12. We thought that was dead 6 weeks ago.
So did I.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love the WCC. I think it's done everything that it needs to do to get Gonzaga ready for an NCAA tournament, because Gonzaga's schedule is so difficult in the non-conference.
Yeah.
Maybe they ease their way at times into the NCAA tournament, but Coach Few's gotten creative. The league's gotten better, and he's gotten creative in regards to scheduling Kentucky late in February this year. So there's ways around peaking that Coach Few has done a good job. I think the league's gotten better, but in a perfect world, I would love to see the Big East expand, because the Big East has always been a basketball-centric league. If the Big East could figure out a way to get a WCC kind of centric section on the West Coast, Gonzaga, I'm throwing out USF, maybe a Seattle U because it's a market,
Denver,
Grand Canyon, Denver. Then you have your Midwest with St. Louis, Marquette, Creighton, who are all really good. Then you got your East powers traditionally, Georgetown, UConn, St. John's, Providence. You could start challenging and rivaling being considered a Power 5 conference.
Yeah.
I think that would be the ultimate. It's going to take somebody with a lot of creative juices and a lot of guts behind it to pull it off. But for this time, I think the WCC is still good. And I don't know, as good as the Big 12 is, that's a difficult task.
Yeah, I think it's multi-layered. The positives and the negatives of potentially going to the Big 12. Obviously, television exposure is going to be better. We have a great brand. We're on television. There's a WCC network that's not a great television network. No offense, but it's just not. But we are on national television enough. But if you're in the Big 12, you're going to get that national exposure, obviously. Will fans be happy? And when I say this, it has to be taken the right way. But if there's a year that we go 22-8, because the Big 12 is really hard, and that's just the truth.
No, you're 100%
Doesn't
right.
mean we can't compete and all those things. It's just such a difficult time to be in, like, the West Coast Conference. I think you're 100% right. They've done an excellent job of kind of adhering to our wants and needs. Remember, we were flirting with the Mountain West a few years ago, and we kind of were throwing out the ace in the hole, and they kind of had to change the units when they measured out at the end of the year for the payments for the NCAA tournament. They changed that, and then they went back to 2 games instead of 3 for the West Coast Conference, because Phoebe's like, that first game doesn't help us, so we have nothing to lose. So they gave us some of the stuff that we complained about. But in all reality, the upside money-wise is just not compared to the Big 12 with the WCC. And I know everybody's like, well, it's not all about money. It is. It's all about money as far as floating your athletic departments. If you have national brands that create the buzz that we do that is non-football, you have to capitalize on it. So I'm curious to see how that looks. I think the WCC is great. It's a great travel schedule for me personally. I think the schools are fantastic, but it's just not like a power athletic conference. Has it been better the last 5, 6, 7 years? The numbers will it's not just us saying it, the numbers will tell you. We've had 3 teams in the NCAA tournament. We've had multiple bid leagues. So it's a good league, but it's just top heavy now with BYU leaving. Even though BYU didn't win the league, that is a huge market. Salt Lake area, Denver market is a huge market that left. And so I'm just really curious to see how this plays out. I'm for it now. I wasn't earlier because I don't want to have a strain on the program where there's a year where we go 20-10. Knock on wood that doesn't happen, but the Big 12 is really good. But we have to, whenever all this realignment happening, we have to get into the right conference. And
I think, Coach Few is going to be a sounding board for Chris Standiford and vice versa to make the right decision. I mean, they made the right decision not going to the Mountain West a few years back.
100%.
I think they're doing their due diligence. At some point, because of all the changes that have happened, a decision is going to have to be made.
100%.
And it's going to be a difficult one, and you're going to find some really happy people, and you're going to find some really unhappy people.
Yep.
But I think that at the end of the day, you just got, when a decision is made one way or the other, you got to embrace it and attack the next challenge 100% on
Yeah,
it.
I totally agree. I think, you're not going to please everybody. Obviously, that's goes without saying. But also, you have to realize if you're on the outside looking in, it's not going to be very much fun. In 3 to 5 years for a lot of these universities, when these conferences start to get bigger and more powerful. Without football, you have to, if somebody's inviting you in, you got to kind of take the invitation. Yeah. So that's just my opinion. It may not be the right one, but athletic departments run on money, man. It's as simple as that. And you have to float the other sports. Mm-hmm. That's not a knock on the other sports. Title IX's there for a reason. But if you can't pay for all of it, then they go away. So yeah. It boils down to that.
Yeah. So. Well, it's going to be. It's been fascinating to watch, and some of these were slow in the making, and some of them were overnight.
Just overnight.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a topic we'll talk about throughout the year.